Great. So welcome everyone. I'm so happy to be with you here in class today. It's such a treat to be with my beloved colleague, Dr. Beth Wee. You're so lucky to have a class with her. And also, I'm also so excited to be with my good friend and colleague, Inger Kærgaard, who is going to talk to you today. And you will never find anyone who is more excited to talk about the life of bats than Inger. So you are in for a real treat today. So as Dr. Wee mentioned, I'm the director of the Office of Study Abroad at Tulane. So if any of you are thinking about study abroad, unsure about study abroad, want to think through fellowships for study abroad, scholarship options, please do come and see us. There are a lot of potential and opportunities for study abroad, and it has been difficult, I know, this past year, 2 years dealing with COVID, but we are getting to a point where we have quite a few students that are beginning to study abroad. Of course, there are new rules and regulations that we have to think about as you're traveling, but we are really excited to be able to talk about that with you and potential for study abroad and courses. And I also just want to plug that this week is International Education Week at Tulane. So there is programming all over campus for you to learn about the different international experiences that we have here. So a big one to put on your radar is Wednesday, we have the Tulane Study Abroad Fair, where we'll have representatives from many of our different programs on campus. And it's from 2 to 5 in the LBC. And you can learn about all the different study abroad options for semester, year, and summer study abroad programs from all over the world. We can talk about what areas are running programs now, what the kind of the scene looks like for the next year or 2 years with study abroad. We also have a ton of virtual info sessions happening and a few in-person info sessions with our different study abroad universities and providers. So if you go to the International Education Week website, you can get a full list of the different info sessions coming up and zoom into those. And this particular talk is in highlighting to one of our Tulane's most popular programs. We have in both Stockholm and in Copenhagen, which is with the Danish Institute for Study Abroad, DIS. And Inger is one of the faculty members there. We have some of our colleagues also joining us from Stockholm and from Copenhagen on the line today. And we have a wonderful summer program in Stockholm that Dr. Wee directs. And so if you want to have more of this fabulous professor live and in action and experiential learning, we have the Summer in Stockholm program for 2022. And then we have semester programs in Stockholm and in Copenhagen with DIS, and we have quite a few students who have participated and are set to participate this upcoming semester as well. So, study abroad through DIS is running now. So I love talking about study abroad. I love talking about intercultural engagement. And so I'm really excited about this Global Perspectives event. We do Global Perspectives, these virtual connections with different partners all throughout the year. So we'll send you the link if you're interested in tuning into some of our other events, or even if you're in a club or an organization, a student organization that you want to bring in an international speaker, we have funds available for you to do that. So please do reach out to our office, come to Global Cafe today. And I look forward to seeing you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Beth Wee so we can get started.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, so Dr. Gibson, yeah. So the way this came about was that, again, I'm a big fan of study abroad, and part of that is to tell you guys about it. But also, shout out to Dr. Henry there from the eBio department. She and I were teaching in Copenhagen for several years in a row, and I'm not exactly sure how she met Inger. Donata, you want to mention how? Was it just because she was on the faculty of DIS? And
no, I think we met in a tree somewhere, actually. I was climbing the tree. She was living up in the tree. It was something like that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, when we would go and when we took students to Copenhagen, Dr. Kærgaard would take us on bat tours. We'd wait till 10 o'clock at night because, of course, it never gets dark in the summer in Scandinavia. And so we'd go on these bat tours, and I've got recordings probably still on my phone of the former Dean McLaren, if anybody knew Dean McLaren, of saying with his very British accent, getting very excited as literally hundreds of bats flew out of the tree that Inga had told us about. So she's going to tell us about her research. She's going to tell us about bats. She's going to hopefully convey to you guys the importance of studying animals in the wild and how it's good for conservation efforts. I hope there's time for question and answer a little bit. And do you want to be interrupted along the way, or do you want to go through your spiel? What's the best way you'd like to do this?
I think it's fine to be interrupted. I mean, sometimes it's falling out, but I have a feeling that I'm not falling out. So if there is something you just need to do, so yeah. Cool. But I think we should have at least half an hour at the end or something like this to have questions.
Great.
Discussions.
So Dinga, do you want to, I want to let you to introduce yourself and tell about your training and some of that. And what I would say is anybody in the room, if you have a question, just put your hand up and I'll try to get your attention and I'll just interrupt. And then if anybody's on chat that wants to just put in a question, we can try to recognize those. So, okay. So why don't I hand it over to you, and Mangatak. That means many things.
Okay, so maybe I should just start sharing my screen. But first of all, I want to say I'm so happy to be here in this distant way, but it's just fantastic to be able to talk to you about my research and the bats in Copenhagen. So, and I'm so happy to see you in New Orleans. Yes, sometimes I check when I can go to New Orleans. At some point I'm coming, but that's, let's see when. Yes, so I think I will share my presentation and my, also my bat software I want to share with you. So I have two things that I just want to share with you. Yes. Let's just, so now you can see this, isn't it? Yes, great. Great. So if you have any questions later on, you are always welcome to contact me. Normally, I actually give my landline that's open 24 hours a day when it comes to bats. I'm always available also at nighttime, and also I'm often out at nighttime anyway. So, but this is actually my cell phone. So you could just call if you have any additional questions. Can you hear me? Is it good? Okay, great. So I am a biologist from Copenhagen University. Yes. And now I think I just want to start a little bit with the map, because it's always good to put a map up here so that we can see how Copenhagen is actually here and New Orleans is here. So we are much further up in the north. Yeah, I need to check on the time. Yes. So yes, so this is Denmark, and it's so funny that, Stockholm is not even here on the map, but Stockholm is around here. So this is parts of Scandinavia, and I wanted to say we don't have that many species of bats. So that's actually fairly easy to work with, because what you see on this map that I have included here is, of course, species diversity is always increasing towards equator, but we have 70 different species of bats in Denmark, and in Sweden they have 19. And I'm actually like, okay, Swedish people and Danish people, they have like a brother or sister and brother relationship. So I'm thinking, if they have these two extra species in Sweden, we probably also have them. We just didn't find them yet. So yes. So, and in Copenhagen we actually have 8 different species of bats. So it's not like, I mean, with bird species, you know, it's fairly, in a way you can say it's more easy to work with bats, because we only have these 8 different species. On the other hand, there's other issues with bats. Yes. So all the bats we have here are eating insects. A few of them are actually also taking spiders, as they can actually listen to where the spiders are sitting on a tree. So that's pretty cool. And the things that bats are doing are echolocating. So they send out clicks, ultrasonic clicks, and receive, I don't know if you can actually see, you can probably see. Yes, I think that's fine. Wait. Yes, they send out a click, and then they can actually see with sound where the insect is. And as you can actually see here, that the insect will always be able to hear that the bat is coming before the bats receive the echo. And therefore, there is also a lot of super cool co-evolution taking place. The bats, they have been here for around 50 million years. So the insect has had a long time to try to escape this hunting strategy, getting more fur, trying to emit other ultrasonic sounds to disturb or to confuse the bats, echolocating hunting strategy. And it's also just a really cool situation with the echolocation, because the different species are using different frequencies. So therefore we can actually, without disturbing the bats at all, stand with our small bat detectors and record, and the bats are not even noticing us, so we don't have to catch the bats. So that's, and then we can still do species ID most of the time. So that's actually super cool way to study the animal without disturbing it at all. Of course, there has also been ringing. I think we in Europe we call it ringing, but I think you say banding, isn't it, Donata? Yes. So you can actually, you can see where I'm using this. Can you? Yes. So you can put a small ring on here on the bats, and then you can track it. But this I have not worked with yet. So yes, I'm working more with the acoustic. This is a bat that I feel like looks a little bit like a small polar bear, and it's also called the northern bat. Of course, sometimes when I do bat tours, I'm always showing pictures of bats because it's worth to remember that they are cute. And so, because people are sometimes, oh, bats, oh. But then when you look at these creatures, you're just like, yes, this I think is specifically cute. And this is not actually much in Denmark. It has been seen on the bridge from Denmark to Sweden, but I thought I wanted to bring it because it's actually the only bat that breed above the Arctic Circle. So, and it's actually a very small bat, and it's echolocating around 30 kilohertz. And I think Donata and Beth and I, we have seen it on our tour. Yes, and it's also sometimes you ask yourself, but above the Arctic Circle, the sun never go down in the summertime, and that's the active time for the bats. So that's so funny to have a bat that really are active in the midnight sun. Night active animals that are out in the midnight sun. That's kind of funny, and you would ask yourself, maybe why is it not just coming further? It's a night active animal, so it needs light, and there is no night up there in the summertime. And this is also actually a fun fact about this animal, is also that it's not very disturbed by street lights. And so that's not surprising, because when it's used to the midnight sun, I guess it can survive with a little bit of the street light. Yes. So this is just like, and this is the nocturnal bat. And I'm saying it like this because this is the one that we have seen living from the trees, some of us. And I always take students to see it living from the trees. And actually, sometimes it is more than 100 bats in one tree. And I will talk about the park a little bit later. But I think I want to actually play a file for you so that you can hear how it sounds on the recordings. So here you can actually see that when the bats when they cover a lot of frequency, they get a more precise echo. So therefore it's practical with these, the lower parts here that are not covering, these are the frequencies up here, and this is of course time. So with these a little bit longer, with covering more frequency, they get a more precise echo. And with the small ones here, very strong, they can see further away. So that's kind of just interesting to understand. Yes, I want to show you another one of the nocturnal bat. And I think we should hear it one more time, because I think, at least in Denmark, we have had like a tradition to say, oh, bats, it's so difficult. No one can, it's you should not study bat. And that is also something that I'm trying to stop, and trying to be like, maybe you should study bat, even also because it is maybe difficult. It's also more fun. But I want to play this one more time, and then you can actually, because yes, it's a beautiful sound, isn't it? And this one, I want to play one more with the nocturnal bat. Donata?
Inga, I have a question. Oh, you could
Yes.
tell. So when you hear that kind of, like it's a little bit it's a little erratic or a little uneven, like, can you tell something about the behavior they're doing by the sound they're making? Like, can you tell if they're approaching a prey item or something from the
Yes.
sound that you record, or not?
Yes, you can. This is a commuting bat. So this is just flying over. If there is a feeding bus, I think now I didn't prepare that we should see a feeding bus, but I can, a feeding bus from a different species, we can actually just see, because there is like a search phase. Of course, it's like the bats is echolocating sometimes just to commute, but also sometimes it will be like, is there something? And as soon as there is something, they need to have much more precise picture of where it is. So then it starts to go into the feeding bus. And this is a species that we also see every night in Copenhagen. So I want to play this, because here we have a feeding bus. So you can hear what the bat is doing. Let me just do like this, and then I'm going to play this one for you. And this is completely different, and it's like a smaller bat, and it's up here with the highest energy on around 55 kilohertz. But let me just play for you. Yes. So actually here you can see the bat is searching, and then, oh, there is something. Oh, I need to know where it is. And this is less than a second. But if we would multiply it up for a second, the bat is able to click more than 200 times in a second to be able to really precise within like a 0.2 millimeters to see where is this small insect.
Inga, can I just interrupt just for a second? I just want to make sure everybody in the class understands what they're seeing. So and you said it, but does everybody get that the bottom is time? And then what you're looking at is, I guess it's frequency is what they're looking at the top, or the y-axis? Inga, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
This is
Can everybody see it's a little darker in the room versus what I'm seeing on the computer, but can everybody see these bursts? Like here, can you guys see? Right, and how I gotta get heads nodding. So, okay. Just want to make sure that they can understand what's going on. And then Dr. Henry's question was, when you are hearing the sounds, do you get any indication of what the behavior was? And she was saying that there can be, in the first bat, it was just commuting, so it was just flying, but then you can actually get these feeding bursts. So, okay, I just want to make sure everybody was on the same page on that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Yes, sometimes when I talk about bats, I have too much that I want to say on the same time. So it's good that we sometimes just double check that everyone are on the same page. Yes. Let me just go back to this. Now we are back at the slides, isn't it? Yes, great. So this is the common nocturnal bat, and this is actually like the biggest bat we have in Denmark. So the wingspan is around, you don't use centimeters. Okay. So and you can't really see what I'm doing here. Okay. So the wingspan is probably around an arm, my arm, a small arm. So it's actually not that small, the bat. Yes. And they live in trees. Yes. And this one, actually, now I want to, this is an interesting bat to look at now, because this is active right now. Jamie is also in Copenhagen. If she goes out on my balcony, I could actually maybe put you out on my balcony, and then you would be able to hear this bat right now live, because for the bats are mating at the moment. Because, okay, I want to say a little bit about the life cycle of bats, because when they wake up from hibernation, which they go into around, actually some of them are already in hibernation right now. These are a little bit late mating, you can say. But when they wake up in March, April, they are hungry. So no time for mating. They will just need to go out feeding, but they have already mate. So the female can keep the sperm for the whole winter, and then the pregnancy will be in maybe April, and then they give birth to, most of the time, just one offspring per female bat per year, per season, in around, actually, I know the dates exactly from one of the, no, not the date, from when they start flying. Okay, so around June, yeah. So, but this one is, this party-colored bat is super famous for its mating call, and around tall buildings you can hear it right now. So I want to get back to playing it, and this is also quite beautiful, and you can understand why it's called party-colored bat, because it has 2 different colors on the fur, each hair. Here you can see it, yes. And also, I think this is just beautiful that it actually go in towns to hibernate. In hospital ventilation systems, that's just like in these days where some people think that bats are sometimes infected with something. And then I just think it's so beautiful to have the situation where they are welcomed actually in ventilation systems of hospitals. I know about 2 hospitals in Copenhagen where they are hibernating in the ventilation system. And with all the bats in Denmark, it counts. We don't know how many that there are, how many individuals. But this we can also get back to. But now I want to play this party-colored bat social call for you. And this one I don't necessarily want to play in heterodyne. We play it in different ways, because then we can hear more, because it is going very fast when the bats are doing their sounds. So now I want to do time expansion. So I'm playing this for you 10 times slower than it's actually recorded. So this is a kind of a different sound, and I think maybe what you can see here is a female coming by. This will be coming from the male. These calls, social calls, and then maybe a female is coming. Yes, but sometimes you have like these males singing for a long time without having any females passing by. And as I said, maybe right now on my balcony, I think there will be a party-colored bat singing. But I'm only recording on my balcony here, so I don't know if it's the next door, like the next block, maybe there is also party-colored bats singing. Yes, so this was an example of the social calls. Yes, so let's go back to, this is our smallest bat, and I actually have a small dead one here, but you can't, it's not, I mean, when I put it up here, it looks extremely big, I think. But it's not really big. I don't know if you can see it in the lecture hall, but okay. But this is a bat that we will see every night, and this was the one I was playing for you, feeding. So that was the one where we had the feeding bus, a tiny small bat. Yes, okay, you can't really see it, but yes. Great. And then we have this Natuzzi's pipistrelle, a different pipistrelle bat. I think you have pipistrelle bats in the US too. Yes. And this one is migrating, and it's almost as small as the one that I am sitting with here. And it's just had like a new record of migrating to Spain from Central Europe. So it can migrate 2,200 kilometers southwest down to Spain. Actually they then just hibernate alone. Some of them are just alone in a tree or maybe in a house, but they go the whole way to Spain to hibernate. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I think I still recorded some of them last week. So yeah, I mean, we have had a very warm time this this fall. So maybe some of the patterns will be like changing. So yes. So, and then we have Dobbenton's bats. I wanted to mention this one because it's a myotis species. And I know that you have the little brown bat is also a myotis species. So I think that will be like maybe some of you will ask a question to the white nose syndrome. And actually we don't have issues with that in Europe. And I have been told that this is because the white nose syndrome is actually originally coming from Europe. So sorry for that. Yeah, but our bats has lived with it for so long time that they are not really, they are not impacted like what we have seen, like the heartbreaking scenes that we have seen in the States. But this bat can actually trawl over the water. So that's kind of, that's the only bat species we have in Copenhagen that goes down and can trawl over the water. So that's also kind of interesting, yeah. And if there's a lot of algae or plants on the water surface, of course, the bats will actually try to avoid, of course, because if they, if they can't really get out of the water again, or yeah. I have noticed on the local lake that I've seen fewer of Dobbenton's bat this couple of past years because we have had a lot of algae bloom. So, but not that I have scientific data on it. Okay, the good news is that all bats are actually protected in Europe. So there is an action plan for in the whole of the European Union, all bats are protected. There is around like 50 different species in Europe. So this is kind of nice. But I want to share with you how difficult it is because, for instance, we have this in Denmark. We don't have any we don't have any numbers on bats. We have numbers of species, but we don't know how many of each of the species. And this is, of course, very, very frustrating because that means we don't follow the population trends. So sometimes when I need to have like a reference on how many individuals there are, we have this Mammal Society guide to their population and conservation status from Britain. We are always just so jealous. In the UK, there are in each tiny county there is a bat group, full with the enthusiastic volunteers. At least there is like I think there's more than 1,000 bat groups in the UK. And we don't have that tradition here. So this bat, you can see even in the UK where they know so much about bats, it's just really like almost close to nothing is known. Yes, just question marked. Okay, so this one is actually logic. The next one I want to share with you is not that logic. So this is the Dobbenton bat that we talked about before. And I think I just want you to look at these numbers, and then I think you can see that it's a little bit actually almost strange. There is a population estimate, and there is an upper limit on 4 times or even more than 4 times the middle estimate, and then there is a lower limit down to maybe there is only 27,000 of these Dobbenton bats. When I look at this, I'm kind of like, do we know anything about this? When the range is so, and then it still goes down to make a conclusion. Okay, least concern, and the population is stable. This is the best that we can get. So, but it's still kind of a little bit worrying when you love bats, you know.
Inger,
because-
are these upper and lower limits within the country, that some counties have 4.4 million and others only have
No, this is
27K, or
country.
what's the?
No, this is estimate for the country. So this is maybe this is like the average, I guess you can say, or like the population estimate, but there could be, or it could even be so as low as 27,000. Was that an answer to your question?
Yeah, I just didn't know if maybe counties vary, that this bat maybe is real popular in one and therefore they'd have a higher limit, whereas others would say, no, we haven't seen more than one or two and therefore it's a real low limit.
No, this is for the whole Great Britain. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Since I've interrupted, any questions from the class at this point before? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Great. I have one more that I wanted to share with you, and this is the nocturnal bats that we will talk a little bit more about later also. And here it's the same, like more than 100 times difference in the upper limit estimate or the lower limit estimate, and it's still as least concerned. And I think sometimes I'm just really like, and they didn't even, here they did like just copy pasted this with question mark, but of course there's supposed to be like future trend here and not past trend twice. So it's just like, how can we actually have this situation where we have unknown and then still least concern? I'm confused about it, and I'm just worried that these bats are not getting protected enough. You know, because if we don't know if there's 100 times difference in the numbers, in the upper numbers and in the lower limit of these population estimate for Great Britain, and we don't have anything like this for Danish population. So yes, so now that this was kind of like my motivation also for we need to know more about the bats. Yes. I need to move you to the side now. Yes, sorry. So therefore, I have a project now, a research project called The City of Bats, or it sounds better in Danish, I'm sorry, Flagermusenes by. So yes, this project comes in two parts. One, I will start with the one where I have these I work with passive recorders around town. I will show you where I put them up, and then I will go back to the park that Donata and Bess know so well. So, but first I have this equipment. Of course, it's just fantastic to work with bats also because now we have so much equipment. You know, just like 20 years ago, I think these passive recorders, they came to the research field even in 2005, or was it 2009? So we haven't really had it for so long time. So that's kind of like super cool that suddenly we have the possibilities. And with this Anabat, this is from Australia. In the US, you have different ones, wildlife acoustic. But this one, I can actually leave, you can see I can have it running without that I have to go and check on it for 117 days on 8 of these AA batteries. So this is kind of like, you can leave them on offshore wind farms, you know, it's practical. And it starts like half an hour before the sun set, and then it continues to record half an hour after sunrise. And it's triggered by 10 kilohertz, so I get all the social sound as well. Yes. So human noise will not always be recorded. There will be some human noise sometimes. Yes. Yes, this is just an introduction to the equipment. Okay, yes. So this is what I get. Now I have like around almost 1 million recordings by now. I'm a little bit behind with analyzing. So what I get is every time a bat is passing. So it's kind of like a measurement of the relative bat activity, you know, because the problem with this is that we don't know if it's just the same bat turning around one detector for 100 times. If I have 100 recordings, I don't know if it's like the same small bats just doing like this around the detector, or if it's 100 different bats. But at least we can say something about different species present at each location, and when the whole year round, every night, when are they present? When are they starting to, what's going on with the, when is this, for instance, the party-colored bats stopping? It's a beautiful mating call. This I will know after this winter. Yes. So, and then we get what we have talked about a little bit, like what is the bat doing? Here we have a commuting Natuzzi's pipistrelle, and here we have the feeding bus that we saw before. And here we have a nocturnal social call. So we can say something about, is the bat just flying over, or is it actually getting something to eat? Or is it doing something social, like talking to other bats? And I want this to be like a baseline study so that we can also continue doing it, so that we can, what is going to happen when the climate is changing, what's happening with the bats. So if I do the same recordings in 5 years, it will look probably completely different. Or yeah, I mean, this April, I have recordings from this April, and it was so cold, but the bats were still like flying around, and I could just see them. I could see on my recordings that they were just commuting because there was nothing to feed on, because it was so cold that the insects were not out. So, and that was April. So that was kind of, I was asking myself, why are they flying out when it's so cold and there's no insects? But I guess it's because normally April, there would be some insects around. So they would normally, and they are hungry. So yeah. I get a lot of bush crickets too, so I have some issues with, I mean, I love bush crickets too, so that would be interesting too. And the interesting, I want to mention bush crickets because they are also having the males singing the whole night. So where I can normally have like the recorder out for 100 days, if the bush crickets males are singing, and sometimes they do duets with the females too, then I can have it out for 10 nights. Because they fill up my memory space, and you could see I actually have quite a lot. It's 2 SD cards with 128 gigabytes. Yeah, so a bush cricket can fill out these within a week. So that's also funny. Yeah. So where do I have my recorder, these passive recordings? This is a map of some of Copenhagen. As you can see, DIS is just placed down here. No, actually, I have one at DIS. So, but I will show you also. I think maybe I should mention there is 5 kilometers from here, from the inner city to out here. This is where I live. This is where my parents live. This is in a schoolyard. But let me just show you the locations. So I have one in a garden here, and this is actually my balcony. You can see there is green space here. And then this is the City Hall of Copenhagen. This is up in 75 meters height. So, and there is no public access to this place, so I can put my detector there without being afraid that someone will steal it or something like this. And then the Round Tower is another historical building in Copenhagen. And I have a detector here. And actually, let me just go one back. And with this detector, I'm catching up many more bats, actually, because I guess because it's closer to the green space here, and maybe also something about the height. This is only like 35 meters height up here. So, yes. And then we have, this is at DIS, out over the pedestrian zones. I have one too, and then in a schoolyard. Yes. No, that was wrong. So, I mean, as I said, I've had issues with tree cutting, so therefore I'm a little bit behind with analyzing. So for now, I cannot give you too many results, but as you can see here, this is the number of recording by end of October. Here's a problem with bush crickets, as you can see. So therefore, I have like 300,000 recordings here because the bush cricket males is like going crazy in my garden. Or yeah, but still in a little garden outside, like, oh, it's still Copenhagen, we will have 6 different species of bats. And on this totally urban settings with the city hall, we actually do have the soprano pipistrelle and the tussis pipistrelle and noctules and the parti-colored bats also doing mating call. Yeah, and by the round towers, we also have a zero-time bat, a different bat species. So 5 different species. So this is actually just really beautiful to think about when, you know, we are in, we are a biodiversity crisis. I think it's just also a beautiful story to have that these bats are actually here right in the center. Yes. So I have 2 locations on as reference locations on a farm. Here I have issues with bush crickets as well, and this I have also in the forest. Yes. So and there are some species that maybe will go under the radar because the brown long-eared bat is also what we call a whispering bats. So they will be more listening. They will be listening for bush crickets, and then they will eat some of them. And so they don't even use. They have so big ears that they would be like not necessarily echolocating. So yeah, and the pipistrelle bat is sometimes like in between these soprano pipistrelle and the tussis pipistrelle. Yes, okay, but so I'm way behind with analyzing data, which is but 2 months data from my balcony here is giving some kind of impressions on what's going on. You see, from September to October, this is just the total number of recordings, and here we have the species. So what you can actually see here is that it's just what we know, but it's kind of nice to have the data supporting it. So we have like a situation where the parti-colored bat is taking over. You can say the parti-colored bat is taking over my balcony in October, whereas these are starting to, the soprano pipistrelle is starting to hibernate. Yeah, and so is also actually this Dobbenton's bat. It's interesting that there is an increase in numbers of Dobbenton's bats here in September, and that's the mating season. And I mean, I don't know yet, and maybe I can't even find out, but I think they are flying over the building to get to a swarming site. They meet and will mate away from the relatives. So they will fly, like, you know, maybe from bees, that the queens are meeting somewhere to mate with the drones. And that's what happened also with swarming with bats, so that they avoid inbreeding. So maybe that's the reason why there is an increase in Dobbenton's bats. This you can't see on these graphs because I am still behind with analyzing, but yes. Yes, so that was just to show you. Yeah, and I think I just want to emphasize on this, because I think it's the same in the US, that the bats are actually present more or less everywhere, but if you don't see them, maybe they don't get the right protection. And I did like a small asking questionnaire at this suburban, or it's actually urban area, where I was asking people, like it was just like a small cohort, but maybe around, like, I think 60 people, and like I was just trying to hide that I was into bats, so I was asking about different animals. And then of course they very soon realized that I was about bats, but I was just asking them, do you see bats every day, or this year, or have you never seen bats? And 73% of the people said they never seen bats. And in the same area, I put out like 7 bat detectors just one night, and there was, in all of these 7 gardens, there was 3 different species of bats. So that's just kind of like the data supporting that people are not seeing the bats, but they are there. But when you don't see them, then you would also maybe more likely cut down a tree that they were using as a roost. Yes. So, and therefore I have done a lot of communication on bats, like teaching at People's University and participating in Natural Science Festival and at Copenhagen University public schools. I mean, yeah, that's always, yes. And then of course, public tours. So, and right now there is something, I'm taking part in some debates, and I realized that, of course, teaching American students at DIS, that's always a great pleasure. Yes, yes, okay. And then I also had like a politician on tour, because if you want to work with sometimes you need to have politicians involved in nature conservation. And we have election today, actually. Okay, we shouldn't talk about the election. Yes, okay, fine. But it's a very exciting election. Okay. Yes. So yes, let's just have a small detour on being a bat in a city. It's quite interesting. I think there is some issues with noise. You know, if a bat cannot be heard, I want actually to share. This is in Danish. I'm sorry for this, but you can see what it's like. It's the same spectrograms kind of that we saw before. This is a train. This is train tracks with the commodity trains, I think you call it. Yeah, like heavy goods transported through the city. And here we have a nocturnal bat singing to get the attention from female bats. So you can see, and the bats are not stupid. So here in a park very close to the train tracks, there are no nocturnal bats because they will be masked from the sound from the train. So because bats are not stupid, they will not sing if no one can hear them. You know what I mean? So, and of course, light is also a problem. I think, no, light is a problem too. And this is not something we can just say in general, because bats, different species of bats react different to light, you know. But there is also the problem about safety, that some administrations are very much afraid that trees will be like falling in storms. I will talk more about this. So, and then there is also the good things in the city. Actually, here I forgot something, because when I do bat tours in the center of Copenhagen, and we have to do like what stands here on my cup that you can't really see. Yeah, so you can see it, but it says you gotta think like a bat. And I always ask people you gotta think like a bat, because it's so interesting to see that bats, they have been here for more than 50 million years. And suddenly we have these city structures. And actually, I think the bats are thinking it's cliffs, you know. Otherwise, I guess they wouldn't be so fond of our cities, you know. So if you think like a bat when you go through urban, the center of a city, you would be seeing cliffs all over, you know. Maybe some strange cliffs, but I mean, I guess that's why they are still around. But also, it's interesting to see that some of the oldest trees that we have in Denmark, it's actually in the parks in the city. So I think that's also interesting. Sometimes you would imagine that the oldest tree would be out on the countryside or in a forest, but actually our parks, they have a lot of old trees. And then there is also a lot of lakes in our parks. So it's actually not so bad. And when you have the water and the old trees, there's also a lot of insects. As I think most of you have also, you are aware of that we have an insect crisis, because some of our countryside is just a monoculture, and then maybe there's something to feed on for 3 weeks and then not the rest of the year. And sometimes in cities, there is more like diversity. So I think it's not too bad to be a bat in a city, you know. This I have already said. Oh yes, this is a little bit, okay, I want to go through this, because this is not something we talk too much about in Denmark, but I am participating in a lot of German conferences where we talk about green dilemmas. So we have an issue with the wind turbines that they are actually chopping the bats. So then right now in Germany and in France, they are talking about almost collapse in the nocturnal population. And they think it might be due to wind turbines. Yeah. Okay. And then also we have a change in the light. I don't know if you can see behind us here. I want to move you. So we have changed to LED light. And this is reducing the electricity used in Copenhagen by up to 70%, which of course means it's also cheaper. But when you look at these wavelength spectrums of light, you can actually see that this LED light is covering more different wavelengths, which means that it actually has the potential to disturb even more, like a broader perspective or a broader number of living creatures. Yes, so I think I don't want to go into too many details on this, because I think we could talk a lot about this, and it's just like light pollution is a huge problem. Yes, and also so many of these things happens due to that we are fighting a climate crisis. So we just really need to be aware that we also need to incorporate the biodiversity crisis. So when we retrofit buildings, sometimes it means locking off the entrance for bats and birds. Yes, and then we lose a lot of trees. I have to move a little bit faster now because I'm worried that I won't. Yes, yes. So let me just get to the next part of the project. This is like the park that Donata and Beth is knowing, so they know so well. The number 4 tree, I've put in this. The reason why I'm so behind with the analyzing data is because this year, okay, I could actually, I'm jumping a little bit, because this year the municipality cut down tree number 8. So I'm in a struggle. So I mean, this is like difficult when you stand counting by a tree, and then suddenly it's almost like for sure that the tree cannot be used anymore. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit behind. Okay, but this park is quite extraordinary when it comes to breeding nocturnal bats. So all the small numbers you have here is with bat activity. Donata, this one was the one where I couldn't find the hole where they were flying out, where Ben found it. Oh yes. So, but
but that's not where the salsa party was, right? Where was
no, that's here. That's here where we have the dance. This is when you come to Copenhagen, you can take salsa lessons right here.
It doesn't seem to be the bats.
No. But that's the cool thing about bats. They actually live mostly on different frequencies that like music or human noise, at least for most of the time. But here I'm trying to count the bats from the trees, and I'm also recording the social sounds from these trees. And this is tree 1, and you can see I've actually been here today. You can see I've been counting from this hole. And you can see they have already started cutting it. Every time you see a small blue dot down here, you know that the municipality is thinking this is a risk tree. They call it a risk tree. I call it like biodiversity tree. I think for biologists, the risk tree is not a risk tree. You know, but this is something we have to accept and learn how to deal with in one way or another. I mean, I need to accept that someone is talking about a risk tree while I'm talking about biodiversity. But this is quite interesting to see the numbers here, you know, and as Donata and Beth know, the bats are coming out one by one. So that's kind of the reason why you can count them. They come out of this small hole here, so you can actually really count them. Of course, sometimes you can have a bat that has a cold and it will stay at home or something like this. but you can actually see here when the bats are getting on their wings. So that I thought was really funny with this counting. I was kind of lucky that I think because each of the females, this is maternity roost, so it's only females. But I recorded some social sound from males too, so maybe not exactly only females, maybe there's a couple of males. So you can see here actually they maybe give birth. You can't see when they give birth. Yeah, I would probably be able to see it on my social sounds recordings, but you can see that they are like around 4 years. No, you can't see that, but you can see what you can actually, the only thing you can actually see is that probably the offspring is coming on the wings the 28th of July, because here you suddenly have almost a double number, you know. So that I think that was fun to see that have this jump. So 4 weeks old, and then they are ready to fly on their own. So that was kind of a neat to have from this. Yes. And by this tree number 8, I had someone helping me, and then he went on holiday. Yeah, so we don't have that counting from this, but you can actually see here, I think in May, maybe they realized there's not enough space here. So some of the nocturnal, the maternity roost would be split, you know, so some of them would probably go to a different tree. You saw how many trees. And I think actually there is like the double number of trees that the bats are actually using. So, and this, I think this is so easy to see that this is a maternity roost tree. So if you cut down this tree, I have already shared with you that all bats in Europe are strictly protected. So now I'm just in a case where I have like, I'm not suing anyone, I can't do that, but I have just like contacted on state level, on Danish national level, I have like reported in that the municipality is doing something illegal to trees. And this is of course hard for biologists because I love bats. I just want to be with the bats and I want to study the bats. And suddenly I'm in all of these legal things. You know, we need to make sure that we know the law, because when you see something illegal happening while you're doing your research, then you just have to do something about it. Yeah, let's see what happens. I hope we can change some practices. And I mean, I have suggested to the politician that this beautiful park could be made into a focus area for bats, because there's so many bats and they can still do like play music, do the salsa dancing, and yeah, and then just the issue is cutting down the trees. Yeah, so this is the cutting. You can actually see this is all of these pictures are tree number 8. And of course you can see that it's out to a road, but this is how it was when I first knew this tree in 2019. Then they cut it like this, and I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe I was still upset, very upset. But then this happened in the middle of September, that there's suddenly, yeah. And I had a meeting with the park authority, and she even explained to me that they could see the bats from, they could look down at the bats when they cut here. So therefore I was really angry. Yeah, so that's kind of sad, but yeah, Donata, I think you don't know this tree, but yeah, and also Best, you don't, I think we didn't count by this tree, but yeah, let's see what happens. Because it's so clear that there are bats living there. I mean, you can't come and tell me you didn't know. Yes, so this is how the park is looking right now. So therefore I'm stuck with all these legal issues, which has to be a part of it. But I think there is hope. You know, there is something called the ecological functionality. So they need to tell how they can keep up the living standard of the bats when they cut. What have they done to come with a replacement habitat for the bats? And between us, they haven't really done anything. So I think I will keep you posted on this. So yeah. Yes, so I think I wanted actually, because now, okay, we have plenty of time. Yes, so there is a lot of, as you can imagine, there's a lot of research potential when you have so much data to look into. So of course, easy thing like, are there differences in social sound at different seasons? Would it be different in spring when there is no new offspring than in fall when the bats have their offspring on the wing, and also just different locations. Yeah, the social sound, I have added this is weird. Wait, I'm almost done, so we're getting there. I have added this funny graph here. I don't know if you can actually see it, but this is actually a translation of bats social sound that my Scottish bat mentor he did. So that is here we have like the nocturnal social sound, and then you can, if I need to be able to compare the social sound from one season to another season, I need to translate it into something comparable, and I would use this this scheme that you can see here with the different, is it a V, is it a U, or here we have two V's, is there more V's in springtime or in summertime, something like this. I think that would be super interesting to do, very time consuming, yeah, but still super cool. Let's see. So the coming up activities are, of course, data analysis, and hopefully not all this legal stuff. I will keep on doing it, but yes. And then in spring, I will have with DIS, I will have an American research assistant, so that will be super cool. We just had 19 applications for 6 positions, so yeah, so that was super cool. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So, and then I'm going to set up, increase a volunteer group working with the park so that we can count by more trees at the same time. And then I also want the data to participate in a Friends project about bat migration. So that will also be kind of cool. And then of course we have like our national, like you have iNaturalist. We actually also have that here, but we have like also some sharing pages where I can also help with my data. So I think that would be some of this. Yes, so I guess that was, yeah, thank you for listening. Yeah. So any comments or questions? I think we still have, we almost have 15 minutes.
Thanks, Inga. That was great. That was great. You guys can clap if you want. So can you see they're clapping?
Yes.
Good. So what, I guess I want to just ask the audience, the people here or the Zoomers as well too, but if people have questions that they want to ask, anything you want to go into, I certainly had lots of thoughts as you were going through this, but yeah, go ahead, Danny. Okay, so she asked, how do you deal with human-bat interactions, particularly if there's issues of rabies or other kind of diseases the bats could carry? Danny, did I represent that properly? Okay.
Yeah, luckily we don't have any issues with rabies. Oh, sorry. Can you, I'm falling out a little bit, but you can hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I have a delay. Yeah, okay. So luckily we don't have any issues with rabies in Denmark. I mean, I am vaccinated against rabies because I was supposed to go to Scotland to learn how to radio track bats. So when you handle bats, you would be vaccinated most of the time. But we don't have any like issues with diseases and bats. Yeah, so that's like, that is actually, people really like bats, or at least the people that I have on tours, of course.
You surround yourself by people who like bats, I think, too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I just give you a sense, Inga, of the person that asked the question actually works for our, she's a medical, she's got her is it Thames, right? Yeah, so she helps drive the ambulances on campus. So she definitely probably had some kind of medical thoughts as you asked the question, Danny? She says she loves bats. She just doesn't want rabies. So you could go help Inge in Denmark because then you wouldn't worry about rabies. So, other questions? Did you guys get the sense of, and I love that you made comments. First of all, we did talk about the bat and the moth coevolution. If you guys remember that, we had talked about that in this class. And I will be talking about migration. I'll be talking about citizen scientists. I'm glad you threw that part out too. That's one of my last comments at the end of the semester. But do you guys get a sense of the value of this in terms of just understanding basic bat biology, but also conservation, human interaction? Any thoughts on that? Yeah, go ahead, Jared. Yeah. He wanted to know if bats use echolocation when they're migrating. Kind of like birds use magnetic sense. Do bats use anything like that?
Bess, you are falling out. Maybe you can repeat the question.
Yeah, do bats use any kind of echolocation when they're migrating? I don't know if she can hear us. I'm going to put it in the chat.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could hear, yes. Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think this is still kind of a mystery. How does these bats, for the nocturnal bat using the same tree, we don't actually know if they migrate, we don't know yet. But they use, like birds, also the magnetic field of the earth when they migrate. So of course, when they commute, they will be using some, if they get closer to edges, if they fly on, I mean, the nocturnal, yeah, if they just fly for a long time up without any, like just open in the air, they would not need the echolocations, but I don't even know if they use it. So a super good question. That would be fun to know.
And I think he was thinking of the ones who actually migrate, like you gave the example of the one that migrated down to Spain. Is that the one? Yeah, so some of those too. Yeah,
the Natusis pipistrelle bat that migrate down to Spain. I mean, for the long finding, actually bats, they will not, some birds, they would just fly in one stretch without feeding. And what bats do, they actually go in a smaller stretch and feed on the way. So in that sense, they would use some echolocation on the way to feed. But when they, I mean, yeah, if a Natusis pipistrelle, when they fly high to migrate, use echolocations, I'm actually not sure. I'm also not sure if we know by now.
Yeah, good question.
Good question.
Remy, did you? Yeah, good. She wants to know what your favorite kind of bat species is to study. The cute ones, right?
What was the question?
You think they're all cute, I'm thinking. So what is your favorite species to study?
Oh, no, you're falling out, so I can't really hear you.
Do you have a favorite species of bat that you like to study?
I wonder if the question is if I have a favorite bat?
Yes.
No.
You like them all?
No, I love all. Yeah. That's what you would expect me to say, isn't it? At least Donata and Beth would know that I would not have a favorite bat. I would probably, the bat that would be my favorite bat would be the bat that I would be having on my balcony right now. And then, so it would be changing all the time. Oh.
Actually, that's a good cultural difference. Jamie, do you want to jump in? I had heard that Danes don't, like a Danish mother would never say, what was the favorite thing you did in school today? Jamie, can you address that? Is that?
Yeah, I think there is a sense of that. I would ask Kærgaard to tell me about her day, but not what her favorite thing. And I've noticed that also with my parents when they come to visit, that my mom will say, what was your favorite thing today? And I'm like, God, that's a question Martin and I never would ask Kærgaard and Annas, but my parents are really into that.
Yeah, so just for reference, Jamie is an American who studied in Denmark as a student when she was a neuroscience major too, I can throw in.
Yes.
And she ended up going back to DIS to work as an intern. I think there was somebody involved in her life from when she studied there. He's now her husband. They have 2 children, but the Danish, so she has Danish children, obviously. And this the cultural difference, because in the United States, we would say, what's your favorite, whatever, what was the best part of something? And in Denmark, they don't do that. They just, it's all good, right? Is that a good representation,
It's
Jamie?
also because we don't want to rank.
Yeah.
Right, they don't want to rank things, so.
Yeah, we don't really want to rank things because many things are ranked that can't be ranked. And therefore you force things, impossible things to be ranked. You know, I always tell my students this story from when I went to the US and I took the train from Chicago to San Francisco, and I went to 13 different states, and students will ask me, what's your favorite state? And I would be like, how can I compare the beekeeper that I met in the train with the redwoods that I saw and the beautiful stones in all the colors you can imagine in Whitefish Lake in Montana? Ugh. That's almost like, it's impossible. It's all too beautiful to be ranked.
So Remy, thanks for asking the question, because that is definitely a culture, that's something that at least the Danes, I don't know if the Swedes are like that, but for certainly, and you know, Denmark is one of the countries that always listed as one of the happiest places in the world. And maybe if we quit trying to rank each other, maybe we'd be a little more happy. So just a food for thought on that one. Other questions or comments? Donata, did you want to go ahead?
I do have a bat question.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Inga?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting to me that bat diversity is higher in Denmark than it is in Louisiana, because we have a milder climate and we have more, I would expect that we have more consistent insect activity and availability throughout the year. But then we also have, you know, higher humidity and more rain. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us some more about why bats select the habitats they do, because it's not real, it's a little.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Renata, yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think we should do like a research project together where we can like all these different factors, you know, yeah. So the reason why we don't even know why there's so many bats in that park, but actually it might be because we have stressed out the trees. It's older trees and they don't, the trees are stressed because there's too much heavy cars driving on the ground. It's things like this. And then they don't close off the entrance. If a branch has been cut off, there will be entrance. So the reason why there are so many bats in this park could be because the trees are actually stressed compared to a natural forest. But it doesn't really answer your question. And I'm also surprised that there are more bat species in Copenhagen than there are in Louisiana or in New Orleans. Yeah, that's really surprising. We should find out.
So just a plug for, if you guys are interested in bats in New Orleans, there is a researcher at Loyola, Dr. Hood, who studies bats, and I've gone on some bat tours with him, and he's got the little devices that can get the images like what Inga showed, and you can see the different sounds, and these devices are cool. And I appreciate your comment, Inga, about the technology, because it used to be you just held up a microphone and maybe you'd hear the bats. With the new technology now, it can show you the signals, it can show you what species of bat is making the sound, it can show you all the frequencies. I think we really are able to collect a lot of data. So we've got 1 minute left. So I guess what I'll do is we'll stay on, and I do want to just have us give you one more round of applause to thank you for your time to work with us. And
thank you for
if anybody wants to stay on, we'll leave Zoom on, but I know we've lost, end of time here. So thank you guys. I will post some questions for you guys to complete an assignment on this. And again, you can contact Inga if you have other questions. And I do refer you to the chat where there's several links that you might want to follow up as well too. So Inga, you can stay on. They're walking out. Do you have more questions? Or okay. So do you want to talk into the? Okay. Jamie, well, he's asking about because Jared's going to graduate in May, so he didn't get to go. He was supposed to go to DIS in the what was it, fall 2020? Was that when you were going to go? Yeah, yeah. So we'll. No grad programs as far as I know, but yeah, we'll talk. We'll definitely, oh, thanks. Yeah, but thanks for your interest in stuff. But you guys good? All right, good. Okay, my class has all disappeared, but we can stay on or I can get out and let you guys chat too. But thank you guys for organizing. This was great. Yep.
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, we've got someone who wants to say thank you. I'm gonna let her talk on the microphone. Yeah.
Oh, this is so exciting. Thank you. I used to row in Austin, so there were a ton of bats anytime we would go underneath the bridge. I was like super excited for this chat all about bats. So thank you.
You're welcome. I want to go to Austin. I need to go to Austin. I want to see those bridges.
She also likes the food in Austin, Inga, so.
Yeah, Merlin Tuttle. He's my hero. He's one of my bad heroes. Merlin
sure.
Tuttle.
What's the name?
Merlin Tuttle. Oh, I have his book here. Yeah.
And it's about bats in Austin?
Yeah, no, yeah, he's the one who.
Okay. Yeah, she's going to look into that. But she said the food is good in Austin too. So good reason to come for that.
Inga, if you come to New Orleans, I'll take you on the road to Austin.
Yes, great. I'm coming tomorrow.